We shall begin the discussion of the second sex, right? Which is nothing but the volume one, and this particular topic is one of the most important and still undervalued. Undervalued means what? Not given that importance, right? So, and you can point out that undervalued contribution of Beauvoir, right? So, Beauvoir means is the name of the writer, Simone de Beauvoir, right? So it is a foundational text. Foundational text means beginning text in contemporary feminism and queer theory, and it deeply, connected, embedded or connected, deeply connected in the European tradition of philosophy, especially if you talk about what do we say that. Phenomenology and existentialism. Phenomenology and existentialism. So the second sex rests on what? Second sex rests on two of the connected, specifically feminist philosophical innovation. Feminist philosophical innovation. Firstly, the gendering of a phenomenological experience, and secondly, the posting of an original and innovative question for existential ontology. So, what are the you can say that question for existential ontology? One is called as what is a woman? What is a woman? The second sex was originally written and published in French in the year of 1949. It defines the fundamental operation of woman by men. Fundamental operation that called the job of woman by men. And it characterizes them at every stage as the other and defined exclusively in opposition to men. Woman is nothing but exclusively different from the man. So man occupies the role of the self or subject. Man occupies the role of the self or subject. Woman is the object, right? So the other, if he is essential, absolute, and transcendent. So if you talk about that, man occupies the role as himself or as himself as the main part subject. So second, it's called as you talk about man is also essential. Man consider that what he is essential. Man is absolute. Absolute means all in all, and transcendent. Transcendent means called as someone who is beyond, right? So, but at the same time, woman is what? Woman is object, right? Woman is object, and woman is not essential, and woman is incomplete. Without man, woman is incomplete, and also woman is mutilated. Mutilated means you can say that more than one. Mutilated means that can be mutate. Mutate means you can say that more than one, or you can say that make one after another. Mute means change, mutation, immutation, mutilated, isn't it? So whereas a man extends out into the world to impose his will on it, so man shows nothing but the supremacy or power. A woman is doomed. Doomed means what? That's something called as a uh, doomed to immanence, or you can say inwardness. Immanence or inwardness. When you say that immanence, it's called as it has no power, or without man, it doesn't have, or she has no, you can say that no state, isn't it? Or called as a no inward. Inward means something called as a no quality, you can say that. So, and this distinction is the basis of Beauvoir's argument. And that is what nothing but the Beauvoir hits or points out or argues. Two English translations of this seminal book that called as what is the name of the book? The Second Sex. Right. So the English translation of this seminal book are available to us. You can find out that the first was by Howard Parsley. Howard Parsley, please write down that. Howard Parsley in the year of 1953, while the second was published in 2009. right? So that can be called as a Constance Board and Shella Malvani Chevalier. So Parsley is nothing but what a retired geologist was, commissioned to translate it in a truncated form and cutting down around 15% of the original volumes. As Francis Gray has commented that what this truncated test assert or called as a you can say that pointed two generations of women into the universe of feminist thought, inspiring pivotal books like Betty Friedan's, right? Pivotal books like Betty Friedan's Feminine Mystic and Kate Millett's Sexual Politics. Now you would find out that other two authors. So with and from their books, the author was inspired. Who were they? Now one is called Betty Friedan, Betty, Betty Friedan, and she has written the book named called as a Feminine Mystic, and another one is called as a Kate Millett's Sexual Politics. In 1946, what happened when Beauvoir had begun to write her landmark study of women, right? So legislating or legislation allowing French women to vote was no more than a year old, right? So it means legislation is called the parliament, get the right to the woman to go for the vote, right? And it happened, you can say that one year before, right? Birth control could be legally denied to them until 1967. Birth control. It means you can say that what woman was means we are talking about French, right? And we find out that birth control could be legally denied. So legally means on the basis of the law, right? Women cannot make as many as they want, right? They cannot go for the what to birth as many as they want, right? The author stated that what birth control could be legally denied. Second one is called, or first one is called the women were given the voting chance, isn't it? In Switzerland, women would not be enfranchised until 1971, right? So such repressive circumstances account for both the fearful urgency of Beauvoir's book and also excessive controversy, vehement controversies it aroused when first published in France. So which one? Now, Simone Beauvoir's book, which is called as The Second Sex, it was published and it gave information about women and men differentiation. Second, it's called as Simone de Beauvoir tries to do the argument in it. So, and the author stated that how the Beauvoir's book and the vehement controversy, vehement means called as excessive controversy. So, it aroused when first published in France. So, the Vatican placed it on the index of forbidden books. The Vatican placed it. Vatican placed it means Vatican is referring to valley, right? So Vatican placed it on the index of forbidden books, and you also find out Albert Camus. Who is Albert Camus? We know that the famous author, right? Albert Camus found it a pretentious and tiresome. So pretentious and tiresome means something like a very tired or called as very, um, full of tired, or you can say pretending to be idle. So it is also said that some exceptions were there, like the novelist Philip Wiley, who eulogized. So some, like Albert Camus, who made nothing but you can say that pretentious and tiresome on this book. At the other part, you would find out Philip Wiley, who made nothing but a eulogized comment. Eulogize is called as praising, right? So praising it as one of the few great books of our era, right? One of the few great books of our era. In the introduction, you can find out Beauvoir points to the essentialism of woman, right? Essentialism of woman means called as a belief of essentiality that point to the woman or that that belong to women. By referring to ideas and practices that reduce her to a home and try to place her within fixed categories. Man is considered as what? Both a positive and a universal category. Right? Man is considered as a both a positive and a universal category, while woman is thought of as a negative category. Right? So the second sex further identifies how the myth means called as a kind of a belief, myth or superstition or belief. So belief of woman hides the diversity of women belonging to different races, classes, and argues against the either or frame of the woman question. That is, either women and men are equal or they are different. Right? So that's what you would find out when women belong to different races or different classes and argues against what? Argues against the either or frame of the woman question. What is that? When the woman question, that is called as a either women and men are equal or are they different? Isn't it? So it advocates or it supports equality for women while acknowledging the reality of sexual differences. Isn't it? So men and women are means equal, right? Uh, at the same time, or it's called as a supporting equality, but at the same time, on the basis of the sexual difference they do have. Beauvoir finds it unjust. Beauvoir, Simon Beauvoir, who finds it unjust. Unjust means unfair, right? So unfair to use the sexual difference as an argument for women's subordination. Right. So he did what? He take the favor of the woman and uh, as a kind of a helping hand or a friend of woman. So as a phenomenologist, she examines women's unique experiences of their bodies and how these experiences are so co-determined by what phenomenology calls the everyday attitude, right? As a feminist phenomenologist, assessing the meanings of the lived female body, Beauvoir explores the wage cultural assumptions. Beauvoir explores what? The wage cultural assumptions frame women's experience of their bodies and alienate them from their body's potential. Woman is defined through negation, right? Woman is defined through negation. Negation means called as in a negative attitude. She is not man, not this, right? She is not man, not this, not that. Always defined by lack. Lack means what? Now, women are always defined with the word lack of things, right? You can say that she is weak, she is powerless, she is, lack of knowledge. She cannot compare with the men. She cannot do what the man can do, isn't it? So that's what is called is always defined by lack. So Beauvoir also gives importance or emphasizes that we need to recognize sexual differences as part of women's lived reality. Right? We need to understand that what is the reality of the woman, isn't it? So, and when we talk about the book, the second sex, the book opens with the question, what is a woman? Isn't it? So, and that defines the historicity of the question by referencing several philosophers of the Western canon. So, Western canon means Western area. The introduction also explores questions of alterity or changing relating to dominance and subordination. Beauvoir has defined alterity as the fundamental category of human thought. So alterity means called as a change, is the fundamental category of human thought. In the conflicting sexual binary, woman is the other, and Beauvoir fills this cast or this marks suspicion of an all justification men have ever provided for it. Right. Analyzing philosophical traditions and cultural rules, Beauvoir observes that not every female human being is necessarily a woman. Right. Not every female human being is necessarily a woman. And that categories exist among female humans. Right. So, means what he tries to do, he tries to make the means a comparison between females. Right. So some may be considered women, others may not. Right. a female human being must share. A female human being must share in that mysterious reality known as femininity. Right. So in that case, Beauvoir argues that historically, right? Beauvoir argues that historically, men have wanted to make their power a right. Men, uh, they wanted what? They wanted to make their power, right? And that is what, okay, no issue. All right, creating laws, men do the or create laws. So that became principles. So men shows the power. Power is a human being's right. You can say also men create laws that became principles that men have done. She argued that, or Beauvoir argued that gender. Beauvoir argues what gender, the social structure, the social structure positioning women as inferior. Women as what inferior has organized human society. Human society is far longer than capitalism or any other modern governance forms, right? So therefore, women's subordination or women's helping hand cannot be explained as a product of other social system. So rather, if you talk about that, means of women's subordination is a social process. So subordination means what? That called as a women's helping to the main as a subordinate, right? So that is a social process and uh, in and end of itself. She concludes by emphasizing who? Simone de Beauvoir. Simone de Beauvoir concludes by emphasizing that change can only occur when ideas of inferiority, superiority, and equality are questioned, isn't it? So why men are when the women are considered inferior? Why men are called as a superior? Why men and women cannot be maintained equality, right? So when these are the things are questioned, so then only you can say when change can only occur, right? So this perspective was groundbreaking as it questioned the very existence of women's unequal position rather than assuming it as a byproduct of other institutions, right? Following, we have a you can talk about one of the video. You can see that video interview in which Beauvoir gave in 1975, right? So a rare interview by you can say that interview by Jean Scriber, in which Beauvoir emphasizes what? The history of womanhood, the history of womanhood, and the power struggle between genders. Right. She also notes how women were historically denied. Historically denied what? Historically denied power and knowledge in certain areas, in certain domains. For example, being branded as witches, being branded as a witches by social, religious, legal discourses, and that actually stops them from practicing medicine for centuries, right? So women have not been, practiced medicine for centuries. Why? Now, because means women are famed by the term called witches, right? So the second sex is divided into two volumes. Volume one, which is indicated about facts and myths, right? So has an introduction, and also this volume one has a an introduction and three parts. The introduction begins with what? I. The introduction begins with what? I. And signaling or pointing the unconventional nature. Unconventional means uncommon nature. Uncommon nature of an academic work. So where the narrator speaks in the first person by using the term I, it's identified by sex, right? So he or she doesn't identify by his or her name. So he or she is identified by the term I, as well as identified by sex when it seems as a person, isn't it? So the first part titled Destiny. When we say that destiny, it is further subdivided into three chapters, right? So that what destiny? So that is again divided into three chapters. The first chapter titled Biological Data, right? Biological data. So, and that consider. So even if you talk about that, the Simone de Beauvoir, the second sex, focusing on her, critique of historical, right, psychoanalytic, the economic theories that are traditionally defined womanhood in limiting, or you can say that deterministic terms, right. In the second sex, you can talk about Beauvoir examines the biological, social, and historical factors that have contributed to the construction of women as other, and consequently the subordination of women throughout history, isn't it? So if you observe that the main point which are found in this particular text is what? Biological data. So when we talk about biological data, Beauvoir opens by questioning reductionist definition of woman. Why woman definition is reduced or getting into the negative? A ovum and ovary, a ovum and ovary. So, and explores a sexual differentiation and its implication, challenging nothing but a simplistic biological determinism, right? So, second is called as a critique of psychoanalysis, right? Critique of psychoanalysis. Beauvoir critiques Freudian psychoanalysis, Freudian, right? So, Freudian means called as a Sigmund Freud, or maybe, right. So Beauvoir critiques Freudian psychoanalysis, or Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis, especially its claim that women's behavior and women's neurosis, nerve system, uh, strengthen from developmental delays or anatomical determinism. She opposes the idea that female behaviors or aspirations are only sublimations. Sublimation is called as something which is a beautiful or called as a heavenly, right? Of inherent traits, or it is a kind of a quality which is coming out from the birth, isn't it? And suggesting instead that they reflect a personal choice and also go beyond aspirations, not the gender determinism. So, and the third one is called as a historical materialism. Historical materialism. While examining angels, ENGELS, while examining angels, another writer, so arguments on gender roles within a materialist framework. Beauvoir appreciates the historical perspective, but at the same time, right, criticizes its limitation. Whose limitation? The historical goal of the woman, isn't it? So, and it has nothing but a limited information. Particularly when the writer stated about a historical perspective and talks about it's a failure to account for how non-economic factors, right? No, non-economic factors like childbirth impact women's societal role, isn't it? When the woman get into a mother, right? So her means her she starts, means she starts becoming a mother, and she takes care of the child, and also she means birth the child. So at the same time, means it impacts her individuality. It impacts her individuality, isn't it? So women's societal role, historical role, then you can talk about that. It's called the historical materialism. So when we talk about historical materialism, we find out that what the historical perspective um, of the writers, and stated about the thing, but it's a very limited information provided about women. And it is also stated that it is generally failure to account for how non-economic factors like childbirth of the woman, so that impacts women's societal roles. So then the fourth one is called as a historical roles and patriarchy. So when we talk about historical roles and patriarchy means called as a male-dominated society. Beauvoir argues that patriarchy or male-dominated society has changed women's social status, right? So over time, so on the basis of from the past to the till now, you find out that what Beauvoir argues that what patriarchy, male-dominated society, that's what now had changed. Changed what? Now women's social status, right? Over time, particularly with the benefit of private property advent of private property, which she argues shifted women from active participants in early societies to dependent whose value was tied to their reproductive capacities. Right or not? So, in that case, obviously, when a mother bears a baby or called as a birth a baby, so if it is a male or a female, so it depends upon what your property will go to whom, he or she, isn't it? So, next one is called as a religious influence. So, religious influence, if you talk about that, Beauvoir discusses what? Beauvoir discusses Christianity's impact, right? Christianity's impact, highlighting its, importance or reinforcement of women's submissive roles, right? Women's submissive roles, especially within marriage and religious belief, right, or religious doctrine. She notes how religious teaching, like those of Saint Paul, right? So religious teaching, like those of Saint Paul, who give the religious teaching, position men as the dominant figures. So even in the religious field, you would also find out in religious teaching, men as a dominant figure, men play the important role. So further, connecting gender hierarchy means gender position in culture. So, all total, if you talk about that, the main point which are found out is called as a biological data. Second is called as a critique of psychoanalysis. Right. Third is a historical materialism. Then fourth one is called as the historical roles and patriarchy. Historical roles and patriarchy. And fifth one is called as a religious influence. So overall, Beauvoir's work in the second sex, focusing that freedom and identity. Freedom and identity for women require what? Require autonomy. Autonomy means, you understand, that ruling on its own, right? Autonomy and the choice. So if the women were given all kind of authority, then women can get the freedom and women can make their identity on their own and choice. Moving beyond simplistic biological or economic explanations to understand gender dynamic. So even biological or economic that explain or understand gender dynamics, isn't it? So Simone de Beauvoir concludes that true freedom for women. What is that true freedom for women? That lies in going beyond roles. Going beyond roles traditionally imposed by society, and embracing individual agency. So you find out that what now some of the institutions who hold to show their power over the woman. Second is called as a society that imposed some kind of a traditional rule on the woman. So they actually do what? They make the woman means like a prison, right? So and second is called as a means they lose their value. So if means we ignore the society, right, and we ignore the individual agency, and we value the woman's freedom, and we means understand the role, and we give them the chance of to show their identities, then definitely we can make what? We can make changes, isn't it? Okay, I'll just go for the more 10 minutes and then after we'll complete it. Right. So Simone de Beauvoir's the second sex addresses a what? A comprehensive. So comprehensive means understanding and critical analyzing of women's historical and social subjugation. Right. So social subjugation through the subjugation means what? That called as a historical and social means you can say that restriction, right? So through patriarchal system also, through patriarchal system means where the main means make them nothing but put them in a kind of a slavery rule. So Beauvoir argues that historical stories have been constructed by whom? Main historical stories or narratives. So that are created or that have been constructed by men, excluding or you can say that a mythologizing woman. So mythologizing is called as a making woman to believe, right? She explains that, or Simone de Beauvoir explains that patriarchy used myths, right, beliefs to cast women or present women as the other to maintain economic dominance and fulfill male moral aspirations, right? So consider or aspire to men. Yeah. So ultimately restricting women to an inessential object role. Isn't it? Now it has all changed, isn't it, in the modern day? So in the third part of volume, right, one titled Myths, and Beauvoir criticizes or critics how men mythologize the woman, right, assigning contradictory roles. You would find out that men say that I'll go outside and do the work, and you stay at home and you do the kitchen job. Your job is nothing but of bearing babies, take care of the house, isn't it? That's called the contradictory roles, like mother or spouse. They represent hope and fear simultaneously and create nothing but a belief in them that I am your husband, and creating a fear that if you ignore me, then you will live in a odd life, right? So that is what called as a means representing hope and fear simultaneously. So you can point out Simone de Beauvoir illustrates or explains how biblical, right, and cultural. Biblical and cultural means how it is narrated in a excessive manner, and cultural stories that portrayed women as nothing but a passive. Women as passive. Women as nurturing. Women as passive. Women nurturing and often dangerous. Right. So it means we make the woman considered passive, not important. Second, we nurture them. Men nurture women. So, and often women are in a kind of a dangerous situation, right? So the ambiguity is what? That called the confusion. The confusion ascribed to women in these myths serve to reinforce men's control. And that's why this is what reinforce women under the control of men. Isn't it? Men's control. Literature often, reinforces these stereotypes. Stereotypes means old mentality. Literature often presents these stereotypes where only a few authors, like Stendhal, one of the author, depicted women as individual rather than archetypes. Right. Woman as individual. Woman is nothing but like men. Woman is also individual, not considered as a old types. Right. So archetypes. Beauvoir contrast, Beauvoir oppose and static myth. Static myth means what? Now give a kind of a means belief of state, right? So and idealized concepts of femininity. So what she did nothing but a given a kind of a aspiring, idealized, right, thought of female, right? So with the multifaceted reality of woman's life, multifaceted means called as a different face of the means woman in her lives, isn't it? Mother, sister, daughter, isn't it? Mother, sister, daughter. So, and numerous. You can find the Roman's lives. And that emphasizes what? That emphasizes that the eternal feminine means permanent female, right or not? So, is an artificial construct. You cannot construct a woman in the other manner. So Beauvoir concludes that, or Beauvoir finally ends the topic that achieving equality. Achieving equality involves what? Destroying these myths, dismantling these myths. Myths means the belief that what women are inferior, women are objects, women are nothing but called as a dangerous in situation. So women are an individual, women are women are what? You can say that, that called as a baby bearing machine and also working as a kitchen job, that's all. So in that case, these are the beliefs must be dismantled, isn't it? And recognizing that what sexual differences need not imply a hierarchy of subject and object. So sexual, so maybe male and female both are sexually different, right? But that doesn't imply or make a sense, a hierarchy of a subject and object. Isn't it? Only then she argues. Who argues? She means referring to Simone de Beauvoir, argues. Can true mutual means understanding, mutual recognition. So you can understand each other. So, and you can give the freedom to each other between genders that should come out. Isn't it? So that is what's called as the second sex. Isn't it? You need to read the whole book. We'll discuss some more about it in the next class. Okay. That's all. Thank you.